Welcome to Performance Preparation for Pros and an overview of basic concert gear. I'm Count William of Fairhaven from the Middle Kingdom. I've been doing music most of my life. I started playing guitar in 1989 and released a couple of albums. And then I, with several of my friends in the SCA, formed a band called Fintan, and we've been steaming along since 2002. We have 7 albums to our credit. And one of the things that the hard-won lessons of the road is that crafting a good performance does not happen by accident. Professional performers work very hard at the craft of performing and presenting their music and how do they wish to present themselves. So in this class, I want to cover what you can do prior to your performance to set yourself up for success and try and cover some other things around just general preparation. What do you do on your lead up to a performance? And I'm going to tell you it's 90% preparation. And if you do the preparation properly, when you get to the performance part is usually pretty easy and more fun. Preparation relieves you of some anxiety and helps you just know what you need to work on a constant basis. So I teach several other classes in this vein, and the first thing we're going to start with is you need to know your material. This is the broken record of performance. This is the broken record of music, literally. You're the owner of the performance. It's all you, and you have to know the material frontwards and backwards. You need to be able to play it in your sleep, and you have to work through every song you're going to perform pretty relentlessly. When we first started the band, we practiced every week for 2.5 hours. When we started recording albums, we would take a night. So we would go into the studio on a Tuesday. So on Monday night, we would spend 1 hour practicing one song. And then we'd spend another hour practicing the second song. And then we'd go to the studio. And to play 2 4-minute songs, we would typically burn up an evening of 3 to 4 hours at the studio. Wash, rinse, repeat. Before we got to those stages, we practiced those songs to get ready for the pre-recording practices. You have to do these things. And it also lets you work out the kinks in a song. So you have a song in mind, so you're going to perform someone else's song. How are you going to perform it? The first time you play a song and what you end up delivering as a performance may be radically different. And we've certainly experienced this in our band where we start with one thing, and it's still the same song, but we end with something very different. So the first one is dedicated practice time for your performance pieces. And by that, I mean something where you are just working on music. You are not multitasking. You are not, you're solely focused on working on the piece, one piece at a time. No distractions, no multitasking. A good lesson that I have learned, and we have learned in the band, is play songs that you really enjoy. Your songs, other people's songs, doesn't matter, but you need to enjoy them. Playing songs that you do not enjoy will make it hard to learn them because you don't like them. And it'll be hard for you to deliver the kind of performance that you really want to deliver with any song. I will say that singing in your car with one song on repeat a zillion times is good for memory, but it's not practice. It is not. You are doing about 10,000 other things, and singing is going to be on the low end of the important scale of what's happening when you're driving 2-ton automobile. So I use my travel time in the cars to just help me go through the rote learning of lyrics. You just hear a song over and over and over and over again, and that's good, but it is not practicing for your performance. And when you start working on songs, you need to pay attention to the little things. Notes you're singing, tonality, the words that are being used, and make sure that you're working through them. And you may find that you don't care for the way something sounds. Nothing is wrong with making changes to songs. You can tinker around with them. I mean, that's folk music. If the singer of the original piece said it's, and you want to say it is, and you work through the flow, but the only way you can do that is by practicing. And we find this a lot in the band, that you find some word or pattern or tempo and you just change it. There's nothing wrong with that. You also don't have to leave a song in the original key that the singer did. For a lot of us, that's like a must. Not a lot of us are going to hit some of the high ranges. So learning to rekey your songs, and that may be something. And the only way you discover that is by practicing. All my friends who know me, I'm going to say, if you're performing your own originals, it's doubly important to memorize them. But I'm the worst. I can memorize every song on planet Earth, and I struggle with the stuff I've written. Don't ask me why. I don't know. I practice them relentlessly and then choke, and it's probably something to do with presenting your own material. But so you've got songs, then you need to put them in a set list order. I have a whole class. It's also on the RUM, but just about building set lists. And a lot of time and energy is involved in building set lists. So one is kind of understanding what's your performance goal here? Is it one song? Is it 3 songs? Is it a half hour? Is it an hour and a half? You know, band sets that we play regularly are between an hour and an hour 20, and that's a very different set list than the 3-song campfire set that we might do wandering around Pensick War. So you need to put your set list together, and then you need to practice the set list in order, not just randomly running through. You need to practice it in order, because that'll also help you get a flow. And you may go, I'm not sure that I like this song in front of that song. And where you get a chance to work on your set list is that you're performing and practicing it, and you go, okay, I want to make an adjustment long before anybody ever sees it. The first song I ever played out in public with anybody of any consequence was a song called Step It Out Mary, written by a guy named Danny Doyle. It's an Irish pub song. And I learned it with my not yet then, but my now squire, Connor McClellan. And we must have practiced that song 500 times. We played it till it was just burned in the bone. And then we went and played it, and everybody went gaga. And they were like, oh my God, you guys are so good. Well, they never see that 3.5-minute song took hours and hours and hours of practice. And that's just what this is about. You know, performing is about everything you do. You're showing the tip of the iceberg, and the huge amount of the iceberg is under the water, all your work ahead of time. So we played this song, and somebody said, oh, do another. And we were like, well, crap. We didn't have another. So lesson learned. So you build a set list, and you leave yourself some extra pieces for encores, for change outs in a set. You may want to change out a song. You know, you have a set list of 5-6 songs. That's usually a nice half-an-hour set, and the crowd is just not responding real well to maybe one of the stylings of the songs. So you have a song of a different style that brings the tempo up, or maybe it's you're running like a freight train and you've burned up your set list, which I will talk about a little further on. So you have some extra songs to slide in, as Master Phil is well aware of. We've gotten better. We've gotten better over the years. So again, you want to work on your set lists in order. Another really, really important thing is, once you have a pretty good handle on a song, you've worked on it a goodly amount, you're happy with its arrangement, you need to time it. You need to know exactly how long it takes you to perform a song. Every song in your repertoire needs a time on it. And my wife and I have been doing half-hour sets every Wednesday night while we're all in isolation. And one of the things we do is we have the time that the song says. You know, we have Margaritaville's timing by Jimmy Buffett, but it includes an instrumental section that we're not doing. So we need to know how we're doing the song. So we time all our pieces. And it's important because having the time allows you to build to your time window for a set. If I need to play for an hour, I can look at my songs and say, oh, I want to play these songs. Oh, that's way more than an hour. Okay, take out. You need that information. And I strongly suggest, at least in the beginning, get a metronome for yourself, especially if you are a solo performer, and double especially if you are a solo vocalist. You should have some idea of the tempo of the song, jot it down in BPM, beats per minute. Your metronome will tick or beep or flash or whatever. If you don't know what a metronome is, look it up on the internet. They're not very expensive. Most programs that you can get on your phone have a little metronome function that chirps at you. And that will also help you with the timing of your songs, because one thing that we've learned is that you tend to play a little faster when you're practicing live, when you're playing live. The excitement, the energy, it's a good show. So again, some of these things about keys and timing and all of these are really important in your ability to deliver a consistent performance, because one of the things that hurts a lot of musicians is, much like fighting in the SCA, one day you should be handing them a Grammy. The next day, you wonder if they even know how to play the song. And so driving on things like set lists and keys and timing to teach yourself those disciplines of performance is critical to making your performance consistent. You don't want your performance, oh, I have good. When we first started the band, we hoped we would do a good job. We hoped we had a good performance. 5 years in of a lot of practicing, probably 7 years in, 5 years in, we started going, well, most of our performances are pretty good. And now and again, you get a skyrocket, and it's a really good performance. But 10 years in, it's like all our shows are good. We don't really have off shows. Sometimes we're better than others, but most of the time we deliver an extremely consistent, strong performance. And then beyond that, where we are now, we smash every show. We go out there and leave it all on the stage. We play hard. We have a lot of fun. And that's a big part of it. So repetition of practice, learning tempo, learning about keys, if you're a single vocalist and you don't own a pitch pipe, you should get one. What key is the song in? Why do you care? You're just singing by yourself. Because it matters to recording and singing and seeing if you're being consistent. There's all kind of stuff like that. If you don't know what a pitch pipe is, you can get one of those online for about $10. I ordered one from England on Amazon, and it was here in 2 days. And it gives you a starting note. We have to do that. Our band does a lot of a cappella songs, and you need a starting point. Otherwise, it can rapidly ride off the rails on the crazy train. Okay, so performance skills themselves. One of the things that people don't actually practice is the bits and bobs around the performance. Now, if you do it enough over time, you'll kind of learn it. But we do talk about some of these things over the concept of the band. And I know for myself, I work on these things, especially if you're a solo performer. So one, you should work on your intro and any banter you're going to do ahead of time. Spontaneity is totally fiction. All the pros that I've ever met, worked with, played with, all their off-the-cuff stuff on stage has generally been ruthlessly practiced to the point where it seems like it's off the cuff, but in fact, it's not. Thinking you can wing it with set lists and banter is, unless you are a seasoned, experienced performer. And by seasoned and experienced, I lost track when my band, Fintan, when we got somewhere past 500 performances and God knows how many practices, 1,000, 2,000, I don't even know. After a while, you get in the groove, you get in sync with your bandmates, and everybody kind of gets it. But for yourself, practice it. Practice little bits. Have a nice intro. Hey, I'm William of Fairhaven. I'm from the Middle Kingdom. I'm going to do a little Irish pub tune called Step It Out Mary. Here we go. And keep it short. One of the things that can really derail your performance is if you get off in the weeds on your banter. People didn't come to hear you talk. They came to hear you play. If they came for a specific reason, and we'll talk about that. But work on it so you have it. You can even write it down, but have it prepared and ready. Don't wing it. Perform straight to your audience. And by that, I mean, don't look. I've seen performances where people played like this. They're singing at the ground. I can't hear them. Their guitar's pointing at the ground. You want to stand up straight, chin up, head up. You don't have to look the audience in the eye, but you should be looking at the audience and watching what they're doing. The reason is kind of twofold. You're playing upbeat pieces. Are they tapping their toes? That's a pretty good indication that they're listening. Are they all moving back onto their smartphones? That's an indication that they're not listening. You don't have to look them in the eye. I typically look at foreheads or the space between the eyes. Some people look at chins. But have your face generally pointing at the audience. They can't honestly tell. They can't see your eyes. Don't worry about it. But if you're here, or if you're not paying attention to the audience, they're definitely not going to pay attention to you. Might work in It might work in super jazz things where the trumpet player goes to the back of the stage and plays into the curtain because it's avant-garde. Not really great for the rest of us. So play to the audience. Plan out what you're going to wear. You don't necessarily have to have given outfits, but it's good to have an idea. Are you going to wear jeans for this performance? Which piece of garb are you going to wear? If it's 100 degrees out, I might suggest that you might not want to wear something that's got a wool under tunic if you're going to play in a performing arts tent, which is going to be like an oven. Have your garb, just again, things that reduce anxiety. All this planning, the biggest thing it does is it lets you walk into a performance like, meh, I'm ready. So many performers kill themselves by not feeling ready. And when they don't feel ready, they don't look ready. And when they don't look ready, they don't perform ready because they're not ready. If you do the front work, this will really help. I just want to have a quick word on looking ridiculous. So all of this is ridiculous. Performing is ridiculous. You look ridiculous standing up on stage with a guitar or a drum or a bass or standing up there singing. It's ridiculous. Don't worry about it. It's always ridiculous. That's okay. Again, the more things you can just get out of your head by preparation. So get your phone on a stand and practice yourself performing. You might be surprised what you sound like. I still am always surprised what my voice sounds like on a recording. So do that. Now, at some point, you're going to get in front of people. Know your audience. This is a big failing I see from a lot of performers. They don't even know who their audience is. They don't have an ideal audience. They don't, what's the venue like? You really don't want to walk into a venue cold, having never seen it, if at all possible. See some pictures of it on their Facebook page or something, or go scout it, or ask them to send you pictures. One of the things that has helped us in the long haul is scouting venues. Go see some bands. If you're thinking about playing someplace, you want to do an open mic night. One of your local places has an open mic night. Go there on open mic night and sit quietly in the crowd and watch other people perform. Look at the venue. Look at the space. Do you need a sound system? Do they have one? There's a lot of things there. What's the sound like? There are venues that sound terrible no matter how good you are. We play in a couple of them in my band. We sound good. I don't mean that the venues are, but there's distinctive challenges to playing in a concrete floored room with 100 people eating, drinking, talking, and the bars serving, clinking glasses, the whole 9 yards. So go in and check the place out. Go see some bands or performers that are in your space. In the SCA sense, go to Penzig. Go sit in a performing arts tent. Watch other performers. We've learned a lot watching other bands perform. You go to some of the music festivals that we play in, the Celtic festivals, and we watch some of the other bands. Model their sound. Look at what they're doing. So you've got to do some of those things so that when you're walking into some place and you suddenly, the last thing you want to do is show up to some place that said, oh, we thought you were bringing an amp. Well, that's not something you can typically fix 10 minutes before the performance. Also, getting to your performance space, we typically roll into a gig 2 hours before we have to be on stage. We take an hour to set up, and then we have an hour to relax, eat, drink, and then we're on stage on time, and boom, we're playing when we're paid to play. Okay? And don't think because you're not being paid, you get a big pass on not being at least reasonably prepared. The SCA is super forgiving. They're very, very nice. People in the SCA are very nice, and they will not tell you that you are terrible. In fact, you can even get the idea that you are in fact not terrible when you are. And I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm saying that you should prepare so that you aren't terrible. And have some people around you who will tell you when you are not doing a good job. Get a thick skin. You want to be a performer, that's first and foremost. Get a thick skin. In 18 years of being a band, we've had everybody tell us that they're the greatest live band we've ever seen, or that we sucked and they don't want to hire us anymore. That's pretty broad. So again, you're going to go play someplace, check out the place, check out some other people playing there. How close are you to the audience? We've played some places where literally the audience was no more than 3 feet away from us. That's kind of crazy. We've played some places where the audience was 100 feet away from us. That's not very good either. Sometimes you have to take a gig and it's just paid practice because the gig, the venue, the people just don't work out. But don't make it we can still have a great time because we love playing music. I love playing music. I can sit in the corner of a hall and play music, and if no one listens, I don't really care. So again, prepare yourself with the venue and the audience. So there's a few different performance types that you ought to at least be aware of. What are you shooting for? What's the performance criteria? Audience is here to see you. So Penzic Performing Arts tent. People go there to see musicians playing. So that's a little bit of an advantage. People sitting in court are not necessarily expecting you to play. They're often subjected to it in the worst possible way. But that's a different case. Playing a pub or a party, we've played some private parties that were just tons of people packed into small spaces, very drunk, having a good time, loving us for 5 seconds, falling on the floor for 5 minutes, So think about, what's this performance and what is the type of performance that you're going to be doing. Are you just background ambient music? We have some lovely harpers in our kingdom who provide wonderful background music. If you're going to be background music, understand that doesn't mean you get to walk out in front of a head table and belt out your favorite sea shanty. Again, I know it sounds perfunctorily simple, but the number of people who miss on this whole section I just talked about, audience, venue, performance type, is striking. And it's not that much effort to fix it. So take the time to do that. I'm just going to mention here, you can go and my set list class is also on the RUM site. It's on YouTube. Building set list is a skill, and it takes time to learn it. And there's a bunch of tricks and a bunch of tips. I'm not going to cover them all here. You can go listen to that class where we talked about it in great detail and did some sample set list building and also some album building. But again, a trick of set lists that we use in our pub life is our lead singer, who builds all our set lists, prints out all the set lists, and we stick them on the floor in front of us where the audience cannot see them, and we can. And every band on planet Earth uses this. If there are stage monitors, which is a big speaker that plays so you can hear yourself, more than a few bands stick their set list on the speaker where the audience can't see it and you can. Print it in great big font. Don't print it in 8-point Arial because you don't spend your whole set list straining to try and tell what song's next. We actually use color coding and big font, printed on 8.5 by 11 or whatever works for you, and set it somewhere on the floor so you can just glance down, catch it. You don't have to memorize your set order. Almost nobody does that, and we usually know what the opener and the closer is, and as we go through. But writing out your set list and having it somewhere at your gig space where you can see it, regardless. If you're singing from a book, one of those pages should be your set list to help you out. This is all supposed to be fun. If it's not fun, stop doing it. If something about the performing is not enjoyable, change it. There's a gentleman who was briefly in our local SCA group, not just a fabulous guitar player, an incredible guitar player, and taught music and knew way more than I will ever know probably about music and guitar. Could never get him to bring his guitar to anything. Couldn't figure out why. So I had the opportunity to just sit down with him away from everything else and asked him why he wouldn't get his guitar out. He had a cover band, and they were really successful. They paid their bills playing music 6 nights a week. They had their own studio and offices and recording space, all paid, and they paid their salaries. I mean, these guys were making a living doing music. And all they played, they constantly kept up with billboards, basically top 100, top 40. And they were very good at it, very good at playing other people's music. And he hated it. He hated all the songs. They weren't his. And he said, and they were like a machine. 17 songs, 3 sets. They would book places 2 nights in a row, and then they would make a 6-week circuit cruising around playing these places a little out from the big city. And they did really well, but he hated all the songs. And after a while, he just got so tired of it. He just walked away, sold his share in the band to somebody else, and never picked up a guitar again. That's pretty sad. So You need to have fun, and you need to project that you're having fun. Generating energy will get you further than technique or an expensive instrument or fancy clothes. Make your performance fun, and you can practice it in front of your camera phone, shoot some video, and are you presenting that image that you want to present? And if it's not necessarily, I mean, maybe you want to sing death dirges and wear black and do the super emo thing, that's okay. If you want to be the next Abney Park, doing steampunk music, sure. But you have to figure that out ahead of time and then work towards that goal and then practice to ensure, are you hitting the mark? A lot of people just don't do that. And I don't know why. I don't have a great answer. I know that's the only way I know how to do it. Work on your craft, and it's a craft. And performing is a craft, separate from playing the guitar or singing or whatever. Performance is a craft of itself, and you need to work on it. So some things to keep in mind also as you are working through your performance is there's a lot of different kinds of performances. So in the SCA, the single most common kind of performer you will see is a solo vocalist. So here's my plug for you solo vocalists. If you have never seen this stuff, it's called Clear Voice. This is a product you can buy off Amazon. Most music stores carry it. It's something you spritz in your throat, and it really does a nice job helping you maintain your vocal integrity. Penzic and outdoor camp walking, smoke, cool temperatures, high humidity are all tough on your voice. I sing a lot. I have no professional vocal training. I've never had any. I'm an entirely self-taught musician, which has some pluses and has some minuses, I suppose. Clear Voice. Also, if you're in the SCA, Auntie Arwen makes a drink. The problem is you have to drink it, and it's got a fairly high amount of sugar in it, but it works good. We've ordered it from her. Myself and Master Lewis one year, we did 30 camps in 6 nights, and we couldn't even speak by the end of it all. We had a really tough time. And Auntie Arwen makes it. I forget what it's called, but if you get on her website or ping her, it's good stuff. Very effective. Clear Voice is nice. It's small. It comes in these little bottles. They're about 10 or 11 bucks a piece, I think, and you can get them in double packs and quads. I have one stashed in everything I own, every guitar case, all kind of stuff. It's a good product. So those are, again, and then you have a pitch pipe, and now you're a solo performer who has a key, and you're doing your vocal. Solo instrument. You also see that in the SCA a fair amount for you instrumentalists who are just playing and not singing. Everything in that is about technique, although understand that technique is not inherently interesting to non-musicians. You may be able to play the most amazing cantata, but if it's not an interesting piece or if it's in some utterly weird key, your audience may or may not connect to it. If you're just playing ambient, hard to say, but if you're trying to perform musical pieces solely as an instrumentalist, work on songs that are fun to play, and then also try and play things that are generally pleasing. Probably then after that, the second most common one is a solo vocal with a music instrument accompaniment. That's usually a person playing a guitar or a lute and singing a song. So for you folks doing that, Clear Voice for your voice, and really what makes a smooth performance in single is your ability to transition the chords on the instrument smoothly along with the vocal and hitting the words and making sure that your timing and tempo are good. There's some very, very good guitar players, vocalists out there in the SCA, and it shows. They've obviously spent a lot of time working at the craft. When you start having duets and ensembles, now you can have a little more challenge. It requires you to practice together because you need to learn to read the cues of the people you are playing with. One nice thing about the band that we discovered over the long haul is we screw up songs with great frequency. Miss a chord, miss a note, and our diehard fans who've seen us hundreds of times are part of the joke. It's a laugh off. But the audience doesn't notice because we don't, oh my God, I screwed up that chord. Let's start over. We just play through. Nobody cares how you started the song. Nobody even cares how much the song was in the middle. But how you end the song needs to be crisp and clean every single time. And when you start playing with multiple people, you have to be on the same page. Otherwise, it very rapidly rides off the rails on the crazy train. You know, if everybody hits that last chord, boom, and you finish, it's magic. If everybody hits that last chord half a beat off from everybody else, it's a train wreck. And the audience might catch that. You do need to realize that in most cases, the audience has no idea what you're doing. They don't understand what you're playing. They may like the words. If you're playing very popular songs, they may know that, but they don't really know what you're doing. So don't give them any clues. And one of our former band members would always say, smile like an NFL cheerleader. Don't ever let the audience know that you're having a problem. Just don't. If you're putting together a band or a big group, all of the things I just mentioned multiply in spades. We have 6 people in our band, but there are some musical groups that have been around the SCA that have large number of people. Coordinating practice, working on material becomes an absolute challenge. Doubly so if you're going to record. And Master Phil, care to add any horror stories from recording Subterranea? You don't have to, but how big was that? 8?
Subterranea 10? Subterranea is 2, 5 plus a drum. And their real problem is that, I mean, initially everybody was in the Midrealm. It wasn't too hard to get everybody together. But then they blew off to as time went by, some people moved to Atlantia, some people moved to North Shield. It turned into a real mess just trying to get people together and then record essentially cold. And we would take, we might be able to get, because we were under time pressure, everybody's in for one weekend and then they're gone again. We might take 10 takes to get a usable recording, and using the usual tricks just didn't work because you couldn't get people back. So we had to do it then, or we couldn't do it at all.
Yep. So if you think about where you want to go and where you want to be as a performer, keep some of these things in mind. I'm not saying, we in the SCA, I'm part of a little group. We call ourselves Bardic Storm, and it's a real challenge. We talk a lot, and we try and do there's some recording things you can do where one person records sort of a master track, and you can share it around so everybody's practicing against it. But not having that ability to key, when we practice with the band in the real world, we sit in a circle so we can all see each other. And that also helps your live performance. If you and the person you're playing with can get in sync and read cues, you can have a lot of fun. And then some of your banter that's pre-prepared really starts to look good. I had occasion, I was in Ireland with another band, and there's Master Lewis. And I was in with a band, and we had a chance. We were, when you're in Ireland roaming around with a band, I took my guitar. I'd been playing for a long time. This was 2006. So the band had been around 4 years, and I'd been playing for quite a bit longer than that. And we were just sitting around pickup playing in a pub. And the gentleman who was fiddling, apparently he was trying to give me some cues, and I didn't recognize whatever he was doing. And at the end of the set, he just lit into me about, you've got to learn to read cues, and what are you doing? If you can't do better than that, just keep your guitar in its case. Really lit me up about it. And it was their band, their tour. Okay. I didn't get my guitar out again that tour. And I came back, and as our band evolved, I started to get much better at it. And then I was working in the town where he lived, and he always said, hey, if you're ever out this way, give me a call. So I pinged him, not knowing what to expect. And he said, hey, bring your guitar. We're going to be playing this gig. Me and Michael, come on out, join us, play some songs yourself. We'll play with you. Went out there, had a great time, great gig, played with them, never heard any of their songs, jumped in. I was reading cues pretty well at that point, but I didn't really know what to expect. And afterwards I said, yeah, thanks for saying something. And he goes, oh my gosh, I must have sounded like a total jerk. But he had had that happen to him playing fiddle. He started out in a country band, and basically in a country band, bluegrass, each musician gets 8 or 16 bars to play, and the rest of the time they're largely not playing. And he was fiddling all over the piece, and the guy whose band it was lit into him about it, read cues. I'll point at you when you're supposed to play. Don't play over everybody else, etc. Those are things you have to learn, just really. That's one of the things that makes a lot of bardic circles kind of painful, is people are jumping in on songs uninvited, and they don't know the song. It's one thing if everybody really knows the song. That's different. So, but that pretty well covers everything about performance. And when I taught my last class, people had asked a little bit about equipment and gear. So first off, with things like clear voice and pitch pipes and metronomes, avail yourself of technology. So pitch pipes and metronomes have been around since I don't know when, probably hundreds and hundreds of years. And you should get used to it. Technology is not evil. Being a Luddite and making no effort to learn any of this stuff when it comes to equipment is going to hurt you when you try and do anything maybe outside of the SCA where you're ever going to have to use a PA system or even understand what a microphone is. The number of people who hold microphones, I should have grabbed a mic. If this is my microphone here, and they're singing like this. Well, a dynamic microphone, which is what you're going to use for most performances, even if you're screaming at this distance, probably isn't going to pick up your voice. Now, Phil's got to put it in front of you. When you hold it to the side, yeah, that's a Sennheiser E835. That's the vocal mic we use in the band. But it is very specific. When you're looking at the end of the microphone, you have to sing straight into it. If you are singing like this across the face, it picks up almost nothing. Mic discipline, learning to use a microphone. That's another technique. Yeah, the way Phil has, that's the way I sing is I put it right in my mouth. My lips are touching the screen, and we don't share microphones much. So learning to use equipment and some of this stuff is important if you're going that direction or if you ever plan to record anything. So I'm just going to do a high-level overview kind of what I think the key pieces are and at least get you down the road. Later this month on May 31st, which is a Sunday afternoon, Master Phillip the Pilgrim and I are going to do a 2-hour course on home recording and getting familiar with recording equipment and what you need if you wish to produce your own music. Singing in your phone and sharing the MP3 is one thing. Producing something that you want to actually either sell or mass produce is very different. So a couple of things as you head into a life of potentially using any of these things is working with sound systems. So if you're going to play someplace like a bar or a pub or any place, you have to use a sound system. Nobody is loud enough. Everybody uses a sound system. A sound system is typically a couple of components. It's a soundboard that allows you to input vocals and instruments and mix them and create volume that pumps that sound out to some kind of speakers. There are speakers that are powered and speakers that are not powered, at which point you need a power amp to run your speakers, but basically that's it. And Fender makes a little system called the Passport. It's a very nice little PA. Fishman makes it's a stick. It's like a big square thing. It's about 4 feet long, and probably the best, most well-known one and the nicest one is the Bose L1. That's if you want to drop about $1,000, but boy, it sounds good. And so what does the venue have, and what do you need? If they have a sound system, talk to their sound person and ask, do I need to bring my own mic? So in a near lifetime, in 3 decades of playing out in places with sound systems, and almost 20 years with the band, one of the things, I always have a spare mic, 2 microphone cables, 2 extra guitar cables, and I always take them with me. In fact, even when we play festivals where there are big professional sound outfits that have everything, we all take all our gear. We don't take a sound system, but we take extra cables, extension cords. You need something to get, if you're running any kind of device that modifies your sound, it needs electricity. So we have two 25-foot, actually we now keep 4 25-foot extension cords to get power around. So when you're working with sound systems, you just need to know, the other thing I keep is what's called a direct input box or a DI box. We'll talk about that when we talk about cables, but I always take spares of things because you just don't know, and these are things you cannot pick up spur of the moment. Building a carry kit, building your go bag for this stuff is super important. Now, if they have a sound system, they probably have a sound person. That's also nice to figure out. I've been some places where, hey, there's the board, plug on in and go at it. Be nice to know what kind of soundboard it is before you do that. Again, that goes back to what we talked about earlier, is checking out your venue, talking to these sound people. But if they have a sound person, the number one rule is be nice to the sound person, even if they're an absolute flipping wanker, because they control how you sound to the audience, and they can make you sound terrible and you will never know it. Be nice to the sound people. They're generally used to bands behaving badly. Don't be that group. Don't be that performer. Say please, say thank you. Try and be low maintenance. Again, if you've done the prep, we stroll into places. We were paying. I took it as a great compliment. We've been playing some of these festivals in Cincinnati now for a long time. And we walked in and we got up on stage and the sound guy said, oh yeah, it's Fintan. This will be a breeze. Let's just get him set up. We know you guys. Boom. 15 minutes. Boom. Done. You only get that by getting good at this and by also, talking to these people. Be nice to them. You don't generally tip the sound guy, but you should tip your servers if you're playing venues. If you're comped on food or drink, that means that they aren't making anything on the register. They're basically serving you for free. We always tip servers. Or if the bar's handling it, we tip the bar. We take $20 off the top of our gig fee and we tip the server, assuming the service was good. Even if the service wasn't great, or even if the experience, there's servers in kitchen, be nice to your servers. That's a hard job. And let me tell you, the number of servers who've helped us get gigs by telling management, when's Fintan coming back? We love those guys, So, be nice to the sound people, be nice to the service staff, always. And if you develop a relationship with some of these sound people, they'll take the time to kind of figure out what you're doing. Like I said, our last year we did St. Patty's Day in Fountain Square in Cincinnati, and the setup was nothing. It was so easy because those guys know us and we've been easy to work with. A little bit about microphones. So if you're going to buy a microphone, first off, in sound gear in general, cost is proportional to quality within a range. Master Phil and I always joke, he's got one and I've got one, like a microphone from Star Power, like a $5, any microphone that comes to you free with something else. I sure wouldn't go untested into battle. I would plug it in and see what it sounds like. You might get lucky. I'm not saying it's impossible. A good dynamic microphone for live music performance, a Shure SM58, kind of the industry standard, very common. You'll see them everywhere, although we've seen more and more places using the mic we use, a Sennheiser E835. It's a little warmer, a little nicer sounding. Yeah, and yeah. But as I've often pointed out, I carry a hammer. Master Brennan posted, you can that the head of the microphone is titanium, and you can drive a nail through a board, and I've seen it done. However, if I'm going to hammer a nail through a board, I'm going to use a $5 hammer, not a $100 microphone. So I kept a little hammer in my Go kit and nails. I keep a lot of crazy stuff in my gig kit, but it's a very durable microphone. I have ones that I bought in the 80s, and they are as good as when I bought them. They're virtually unkillable. They have very moderate sound response. They're kind of middle of the road. But if you want something that's going to be durable, especially if it's something you're going to play outdoors, if it's weatherproof. It's just an indestructible microphone. I have two Shure SM58s, and I have a Sennheiser E835 for my band performance, and that's what we record with when we use live record. So you're going to spend some money. Those are each $100 microphones at Sweetwater, the best place to buy gear in the whole world. And they have people who will help you. If you want to talk about microphones, they actually have a microphone vault when Master Phil was trying to figure out how to get a better sound out of his Bowron, we drove out there. We were going to spend about $1,200 and buy new speakers, but he needed a new mic for his Bowron. Playing with a stand mic is not a great way to do it. You want something that mounts on the Bowron. And our guy there, Tyler, we just auditioned mics for 2 hours. I took a guitar, we went into their sound room and plugged in, and we played some songs, and we said, okay. And I don't remember what mic you settled on, the one you're using now. I had to build a little clip for it. I can't remember what kind it is.
Sennheiser 614. It's about the size of my finger.
Yeah, it's a little tiny microphone. Boy, it has good sound, and it has minimal ghosting. Sometimes you can get sound coming through the front head of a Bowron because it's being played sideways, and there's sound. You know, it's a permeable head at some level. So those are things you can do. Again, enlist other people. I'm really good at playing music. I'm far from an expert on sound equipment. So when we go to buy sound equipment of any bulk spend, we take the time on a weekend and we drive out to Sweetwater in Fort Wayne. It's just outside of Fort Wayne. Call them. They love to talk to people. Their salespeople are tops. And you can spend for recording, one of the big mics that a lot of people like is something called a Shure SM7B. It's one of those radio mics you see a lot. And I think it's about $350 or $400. You don't need anything like that for performance. A good $100 Shure or Sennheiser, you're good to go. Those kinds of microphones, and we'll talk about cabling. So you can also get vocal effects. Now, why would you use a vocal effect? Well, there are a lot of reasons to use a vocal effect. Smooths out the rough edges of your voice, gives a little more timbre. Vocal doubling, where it takes a copy of your voice and gives you two voices on top of each other, gives you a lot more fullness and power. And also helps you not over-sing. Screaming into microphones is a fast way to wreck your voice. Technology, the sound system will set how loud it is. And your sound person will get your input to the system, because what you're singing in, you want to have coming out, but you can raise the level of the house where I don't have to scream at the top of my lungs. Most vocal effects come in the form of some kind of little pedal. For the money, I think I paid $129 or $159 for mine. TC Helicon makes a vocal pedal called the Mic Mechanic. It is outstanding. It's one of the best, easiest to use, most durable pieces of equipment I've bought. It looks like this. It's a single pedal. This one runs on 9-volt power but does not take a battery. It allows me to set the reverb hall, which gives some reverb to my voice. A good term to understand with some of these things is wet versus dry. Dry means no effect. So if you recorded a microphone straight through to the soundboard, that's dry, no effect. Not generally super pleasing. You can use some equalization to make the sound nicer, but when you play in a space, you don't get the hall sound. All these great cathedrals and places that were built, one of the things was they were there to amplify vocal music. There's at Kumler Chapel in Oxford, Ohio, has one of the best arched spaces for singing. You can whisper and be heard at the back of the hall. But when you're playing at the Dublin Pub in Dayton, which was actually converted an old car repair shop where they basically kept the frame, and it's got giant air conditioning duct pipes about 8 feet, 10 feet over your head going through the roof. The entire surface of the roof is paneled and sort of a cone, and then the walls are all irregular and the floor is concrete. You need some help. For venues, you need some help. So the Mic Mechanic allows you to add as much or as little of that reverb effect as you want. It also does basic pitch correction. If you practice well enough, maybe you don't need pitch correction, but you're tired, you're sick, you have to perform, you're contracted, somebody's paying you. You sing a little flat when you're tired, you sing a little sharp when you're anxious. A little bit of pitch correction is not the worst thing you could do. And we're not trying here to sound like Kanye West, okay? That's auto-tune taken to an insane level. But a small amount of pitch correction can really help you, and the TC Helicon products for vocals are by far the best I've ever used. I also own one of their Harmony boxes, and it's a gorgeous machine. Again, go to a music store, check it out. Ask people. These people in music stores want to sell you stuff. They're happy to talk to you. Maybe, you know, as you build a kit, if you're going to do some of that performing, you want a vocal effects pedal. After having used it now for about, I don't even know, 4 or 5 years, I wouldn't do a live performance without it. Amplifiers, often referred to as amps. When people use it in that context, they're talking typically about an instrument amplifier or a guitar amp. Amps come in a million sizes and shapes. The major component, the major thing it does is it takes an instrument like an electric guitar, which has no volume. Electric guitar, you can't really hear it when it's being played, and translates that to something to be played out. They're all different kinds. And they're famous. You know, the Beatles famously played Vox amps. They put Vox on the map. Lots of guitar players I know like Marshall amps because they're screamingly loud and will destroy your ears. A lot of people on stage, when you're playing sound systems, wear earplugs. We do. Always carry earplugs in my guitar case. There's also little tiny amps, you know, for things like the SCA or Ren Fairs where you may not want a lot of overt equipment. Companies like Honeytone and Pignose make little tiny, and when I say small, Pignose makes an amp that's smaller than this box, and it's quite loud, and it runs on batteries. And I saw at a Ren Fair, a guy was playing a bouzouki, which is not a terribly loud instrument, and he cleverly put a little tiny Honeytone into, Haroon uses we were sitting in an event, and I heard somebody playing an oud, which is not a supremely loud instrument, and it was filling up the hall. It was awesome. He's using a little amp hidden out that runs on batteries. Honeytone I was stunned at how loud a Honeytone amp is. And what this guy did is he had a wicker basket on his waist, Honeytone amp, and a little cord for his bouzouki. It was very clever. Again, guitars by their nature can be fairly loud, especially if you're playing a dreadnought or a full size. But as you start playing some other instruments, maybe a small amount of sneaky amplification, not a bad thing. While they are often associated with electric guitars, you certainly can use them with acoustic guitars. Same idea, give you more volume, more sound. As a band, I do not use an amp on stage. Everybody runs direct into the soundboard, and the soundboard does all the sound. You don't want stage amps competing. And you'll see, like in big rock venues, you'll see a band that has a speaker on stage, but it'll have a microphone on it because they want the sound of that amp, but that amp isn't being played loud enough to fill the hall. It's not competing with the sound system. Like instrument effects, like vocal effects, there are instrument effects, and there are a zillion, million instrument effects. They are typically in the forms of pedals or multi-pedal functions, although a company called Line 6 puts all their effects in their amplifiers. Very neat. You can have many amplifier sounds, and some of those sounds are associated with eras of music. Let's see, British Invasion is a pretty common amp sound that people want. Want that British Invasion 60s. And so you can get devices that you plug your guitar into that give you some effect. For most of the kind of music that the folks on this are probably doing with acoustic, you're probably looking at the indispensable chorus. Chorus is the only effect I run, the Brian May pedal. Yeah. Chorus is a way to make your guitar sound fatter and create overtones or undertones that really make your guitar sound nice. Now, if it's $25 plywood guitar, I'm not sure you might be able to affect it enough to make it sound perfect. But typically, you're looking at a nice instrument and a pedal, and you can get a far nicer sound than if you bought an instrument that was much more expensive. My pedal board for my acoustic guitar that I play in my Irish pub band is I go from the guitar, which has its own pickup and preamp, down to another preamp so that I have a little more volume room. From my preamp, I go to a tuner. And again, tuning. Live it, learn it, love it. I have a tuner that I can step on. It cuts off my guitar signal to the board. I can tune, and then I come back off. So if I need to tune in the middle of a song, I don't disrupt the song The band just plays. Everybody gets how we do that. From there, I go into an equalizer. I use an MXR. It's a 10-band equalizer. Gives you a lot of sound control. Plus, it has some more gain. It has input gain, so raise the signal coming into the box. It has output gain. Raise or lower the signal going out of the box. Again, these are things that all give me more range. If the sound guy at some venue says, hey, I need more signal, I have 3 places to add it. Or if he says, hey, to take it back, I can do that in one place. Yeah, absolutely, Corey. You can unmute your mic. We're the only ones on this. Nobody else came to take the class today. So, yeah. The MXR. Go ahead.
We're being recorded for posterity, so I don't want to interrupt your patter.
Well, we recorded all the questions on my last 3 classes. So those questions, believe me, if you're asking a question, somebody else is thinking about asking it. So go ahead and ask the question, and then I'll answer it.
So the question is, you mentioned you've got an EQ. Do you use that to compensate for the venue?
Okay, so the personal EQ that I have in my system is set, but we use the EQs on the soundboard. Phil makes adjustments for the venue for sure. I don't generally adjust unless he says, hey, I'm hearing something wonky, something weird, take out some of band X. Mostly what we've tried to do is get the EQ on the instruments set to the most pleasing output, and then downstream on the soundboard, the sound guy, in this case Master Phil, will adjust the highs, mids, lows, and the soundboard has a lot of adjustment there as well. But if I was playing a coffee house gig, yeah, I would probably strum a few, and I would look at the space and I would adjust. I actually take a picture with my phone of my MXR settings so that I can always put them back if I change them.
So, so if you play a few chords and you hear that the room is kind of trebly, or there's something rattling right around this frequency band, you can back that off a little bit.
Yep. Or you need a little more pop. If you're playing by yourself, you may need a little more of that high end, right? So you can tap it up. Mostly the big adjustments in EQs are in and around the bass. When we play with the band, my guitar doesn't have to appear extremely bassy because we have a bass player. If I play on my own or small, I may want that bass up a little more. There are literally 10 million guitar effects, distortion, fuzz, super fuzz. It just goes on. You can go down that rabbit hole. You can find a lot of nice reviews of this equipment on YouTube. I decided to buy the Harmony or the Mic Mechanic after I watched TC Helicon's demo of it, and it's like perfect. And Karen uses one, our lead singer, and I use one, and it's a very nice tool. So instrument effect, and then you can see some crazy stuff. If you really want to look at that, go ahead, Google Alex Lifeson, the guitar player for Rush. Alex Lifeson's pedal board. He calls it deep freeze. It's astonishing. It's huge, but it's astonishing. The way the effects are wired, you can see some crazy stuff. A little bit about, and just to make sure, for most of what you might ever do in ska venue or pub venue, a chorus pedal gives you just about everything you need. And TC Helicon's chorus pedal is just the cleanest, nicest. I played a DOD super chorus for a long time, and the TC Helicon is cleaner and it gives me more options. So that's why I like that. And it was about $150, $100, $150. Good investment though. A little bit about PA systems. So you have to have, if you need a sound system, what are you going to do? So you could, if you're a solo performer, you could drop. You can't get out of this for less than $600, I don't think. I think Fender's smallest passport system, which is like a suitcase, and the sides come off, and those are the speakers. You pull out the stands, and the centerpiece is your mixing board. I think it's 8 channels. I don't think they offer one much less than $600. There are a number of nice single. So I own something made by Fender called a DS150 combo amp. It allows me to plug in one guitar and one microphone. Has separate EQs, volumes, and effects for both. Very nice. It's very heavy, but it's great sound, and it's loud enough that I could probably make the neighbors call the police pretty easily. Fishman and Bose make portable systems, and now there's some of the bigger companies are starting to get. I've seen some nice single speaker with a little sound setup on the back, or you plug in a small 4-channel board so you can have guitar. And some are pretty nice, and you're still looking at $6. I have often thought about buying one, but as the band has a sound system, if I ever needed something, I could borrow it, and I just don't think I'll use it enough. I got the Fender DS150. I bought it used from a friend. I got it for $150. You can't find it on eBay used, hard used, for less than about $3. But what was that? That must have been me just echoing on somebody's channel. But you can look on Facebook Marketplace. I found some great buys. You can look on eBay. You can talk to go to your local pawn shop. They have lots of music equipment. I've bought a lot of instruments at pawn shops over the years, and if you just want to get your feet wet, go buy a Fender amp or a PV Basic amp. It's probably a big speaker and some small amount of adjustment. Plug in and get after it. Now, you have to have something that gets the sound from your instrument to the amplifier. If you have a pure acoustic guitar, you need something called a pickup. If you've ever heard the term, a pickup is a magnet that can read the string vibrations and send that to something. They make ones that clip into the sound hole. A lot of guitars come with them built in. If you have a luthier or a local music store, they can probably install one for you. They range in price from as cheap as $50. I have a $200 LR Bags neodymium active, and it's money. It's beautiful. It sounds so good. It sounds so much better than my $80 Fishman, which I swapped to another guitar, and it sounds fantastic on that guitar. It just didn't sound as fantastic on my bar guitar. So you can do a little reading on that, but you need something to get that. Or you could stand a microphone up and use a mic. But you want to so if you are interested in miking a guitar, sitting and playing, the best mic, kind of hands down in the dynamic microphone, is the Shure SM57. It's been used by everybody on planet Earth to record acoustic guitar, and I own one. It's a very, very nice instrument mic, and it's about same price. I think around $120. And if you have a Shure 58 and 57 or the Sennheiser E835 and a 57, you have enough equipment in terms of sound intake to record. I own
how many 5.
Do you? Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
remember I'm recording Subterranea. It's all string instruments. SM57 is perfect for string instruments. Renting them was getting, by the time I got done renting them, I'd have bought them anyway. So I said, all right, heck with that, I'll just buy them. And I picked them up used, didn't pay $100 full list price. Bang, done.
Yeah, and again, part of how you're going to present your instrument, I like instruments that plug in so that I can plug into the system or plug into the amp. Again, coffee house show, I'm going to bring my amp, I'm going to plug in, I'm going to use my pedal board, but all my guitars have some way to be amplified. The nice thing about in sound hole pickups is, for you guitar players or you other instrument players, clip-ins, they make them for bazookies and mandos. You only need to buy one, and you can transfer it across a wide range of instruments. Can't remember if it's Dean Markley makes a little. It's about the size of a lifesaver with a wire coming out of it, and you just stick it onto the body of the instrument. Yeah, or there's a clip in for the sound hole. There's a bunch of these. And the nice thing is you can trade them across your other instruments in your collection. I have 8 guitars, I think. I might have 9 guitars. I don't actually know off the top of my head. I have 5 12 strings and 3 6 strings, now 4 6 strings. Yeah. So most of them have built-in sound systems, but what comes with most guitars, no matter how highly it's touted, is a $12 to $15 piece of sound equipment you can order yourself off Amazon. Unless you're buying something where they are specifically telling you, we are installing an LR Bags M1 active. Okay. So a lot of the sound systems that are plugged into most guitars are not the greatest quality, and they're not the greatest durability, but you can easily get a great sound hole pickup or mic that you can use across a broad variety of instruments. Pay for the best one time, pay for the best and only cry once. I'm actually, the LR Bags pickup has it uses an end pin jack where you jack into the back of the guitar. It's a plug, so I could buy. They're like $20. I could buy a bunch of those, outfit all my guitars, and move my M1 Active between the guitars. I think I'm going to buy a second one so I don't have to do that. The guitar that I use for my band play is set up, and I don't want to screw with it. But that's an option that gives you a little more flexibility, and you also can take it out if you want to play in the SCA setting where you don't want to look overtly modern with fancy electronics all over your instrument. The last thing is cables, and I just want to show you this so that you understand, for everybody who may or may not. This is a 1/4-inch guitar cable. It's got one ring. It's a mono signal. Transfers one sound from point A to point B. These are the bulk of your workhorse cables that you use. Keep them coiled, treat them nicely. This is a cable, and I know Phil has a bunch of these like I do. This is from Ace Music in Dayton, and they've been gone for 10 or 15 years. And
treat them nice, but don't be afraid to pitch them. Cables are always the first thing to go. And
this is why we always have we have an old school computer tape box. It's like an indestructible small foot locker, and all that's in it are cables. Now, if you have a little bit of soldering skills, you can repair them. I repair most of the cables in the band, and I have a Behringer cable tester because I know how to solder. And I feel bad just throwing something away, but we literally have bought some of these cables that I've soldered a couple of times now, and we bought like 10 of them for $35 or something. So not a big deal. The other kind, this is what's called an XLR cable. It is a microphone cable, and it has 3 pins in it and 3 outlets. This is what you call balanced, and 1/4-inch is unbalanced.
It's technical. Don't worry about it.
Right. The big thing is that this will typically give you a better signal to the board, which is why when your guitar is going like this, lots of places will use what's called a direct input box, which converts this kind of signal to this kind of signal. I have a Behringer DI that I love. It's been a great DI for me. In fact, I bought an extra so I would have one in my spare bag. And the Behringer DI is that thing that will allow me to think. Most places when they concerts and venues, they'll say, you know, can you go direct? What they mean is, does your instrument have the capability, or your setup have the capability to plug into their DI box? And if yes, great. If not, again, they're not expensive. I think they cost about $25 each. You're gonna play a lot, you might want to get one. Have a lot of extra. Go ahead.
Then there's the one that goes the other direction, which has a DI input and a 1/4-inch output.
Yep. The dual. Yeah, I have. Mine does all of it. It's got. This is a real nice, and I couldn't really put my soundboard in front of the camera, but it allows me to go 1/4 in, 1/4 out, balance in, 1/4 out, 1/4 in, balance out, balance in, balance out. And it's about twice the size of a pack of cards. It's very nice, and it's a nice low profile in my sound rig. And that is a very fast, high-level primer. If you want to dig into this subject more, we'll be teaching this class on home music production. We're going to cover a lot of this in detail. I didn't cover anything on soundboards. That's a whole, we could probably just sit around and talk about soundboards. You don't have to spend a lot of money to get a soundboard. Whether you need one or not is a different case. And for home recording, you may want to look at something more like, we use a device made by a company called Zoom. I believe it's the Zoom X16. It's an 8 simultaneous input channel. Essentially, it's a little soundboard recorder that records direct to an SD card. And then you take your SD card and you dump it into your favorite recording software. The easy for novices is Audacity. It's free. It's pretty well supported. There's a lot of community people. I use Audacity all the time. But
Well, you don't do the class now. That's why we're going to take
Right.
2 hours to talk about it on sale.
Right. But the biggest thing you can do is get educated. And one of the best places to do this is go out on YouTube. Want to learn about guitar pedals? There are 10 million videos on guitar pedals. Want to learn about microphones? There are whole channels of people talking about microphones. And microphones, you can go spend a lot of money. I've seen a $10,000 microphone. It was worth it to the studio that bought it. That was their investment. I've seen, yeah, but for the home user, that's insanity. So we'll talk about that in the recording class, and that's largely it. That's a quick top down, how to perform better, and a quick overview of equipment. And I will always suggest technology will help you. Take the time to learn a little bit about it. And that's it.
So I'm saving my question about digital versus analog board for that next discussion.
Oh, I can already tell you what the answer is. Well, I'm sorry. So something that was interesting just now that we're you can kill the recording at any point.
Well,
When
I end it, the call is over.
Oh, so don't. Oh, crap.
So you guys can keep talking.
Okay.
Hit the stop record call button, Oswald.
Trim it off.
I got other stuff I'd like to do with my Zoom too. So you
No,
guys keep
that's
talking
fine.
for
That's fine. That's fine. We have another. I just wanted to. We get chat about it, but yeah, if I could get a Neve analog board, I'll take a Neve. Neve still has the company he founded still has and makes equipment. I didn't realize you could get anything Neve that's new. I was watching something on YouTube, and the guy said, and I really like this Neve input box, and you can get this for about $100. And I'm like, excuse me? Really? Yeah, if you've never seen the Sound City movie, the whole thing about the building of that soundboard is beyond fascinating for those folks so inclined. So anyways, thanks for jumping on and providing some moral support. This is the first time I've had a class that didn't get pretty big attendance, but figured it was worth recording all of this so that folks can have it. It'll be in the RUM YouTube channel. And then Master Phil and I are going to do a lot more detailed class on home recording May 31st, which is a Sunday afternoon. I want to say 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock your time.
3 o'clock Eastern.
I think. Yes, I think.
I think you're right.
There'll be a calendar event for it. So
Yeah. And we've been working on that.
I'll be tweaking it up to the last minute, no doubt.
And do me a favor, somebody ping me a few days in advance when you have the time nailed down, because there's a couple folks out of Kingdom that I think will be very interested.
Oh yeah.
It's already on the RUM calendar, is it not?
well,
True?
it's on. So I don't do I do these 2 weeks in advance. So
Okay.
at the end of this week, I will be building out the first stuff for June. At the end of the week. And so, but I'll be catching that one as part of that first week of June. It is scheduled for 3 p.m. And I'll get that put out there it'll be out there by Friday.
So 3 p.m. Eastern.
3 p.m. Eastern.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Well, cool. Good to see all your smiling faces. I hope you are all well. And thanks to RUM for putting this together. Oswin and Drew, thanks so much. I still enjoy putting. I'm waiting for my logo. I'm going to have you make 2 of them, so I have a spare.
Yep.
Lewis is making me a replacement logo for my Ovation case. The only thing missing from my guitar is the logo's gone.
Yep.
So he's going to make me a logo.
He did an impress of the vacancy there where it sits in.
Right.
And I got ABS that I'm going to carve up on my carving
Ovation
system.
changed their logo.
They did.
Oh dear.
Ovation changed their logo a little bit, and they don't have replacements for ones that old. It's from '79.
Yeah.
So, but I have Lewis, which is better. All right. Everybody have a great night. Hope to talk to you all soon.